When I made a certain video over 2 years ago, I opened by discussing a few elements that I believe to be crucial to a game's success. Some of those factors that I briefly touched on included the gameplay, the sound design, and the world design. However, of these factors, I believe that there are two that supersede the rest: characters and story. Now, I'm a sucker for a good story. Well-written, engaging stories can be the make or break point for a game in my eyes. While I tend to prefer stories that are told to the player directly, I also have an appreciation for those games that take a more cryptic approach with their storytelling. One of the best examples of this is, of course, Elden Ring. At its core, Elden Ring is a story of fractured identities and the struggle for autonomy in the face of cosmic forces. Every character you meet, every boss you fight, has a story to tell. Stories of love, loyalty, ambition, or finding purpose. In a world of never-ending conflict and bloodshed, it's these moments of humanity that leave the strongest impression. In this world, virtues and values are put to the test, and even the strongest wills can crumble under the weight of an unchangeable fate. In a world like this, how does one find their purpose? And what becomes of those who serve faithfully, even when their loyalty leads to their destruction? In my eyes, few characters embody these struggles more than Blaidd the Halfwolf. His story is one of unwavering devotion, silent love, and heartbreaking tragedy in the face of an undeserved and inevitable fate. Blaidd is not just a companion. He is, unarguably, the most tragic character in Elden Ring. To fully understand Blaidd's story, we need to first understand who and what he is. Blaidd is the shadow of the witch Ranni. In Elden Ring, a shadow is an entity that is sworn to protect the person they are bound to, following them everywhere. Now, it's important to note that Ranni is what is known as an Empyrean, which are basically powerful individuals that have the potential to ascend to godhood. These Empyreans are selected by entities known as the Two Fingers, which are manifestations of a being known as the Greater Will. Now, as a quick side note, we aren't entirely sure if every Empyrean was given a shadow, as we only know of Blaidd and Malekith being the shadows of Ranni and Queen Marika respectively. As of the writing of this script, and the recording of these lines, we have no evidence to suggest that the other Empyreans we know of, being Miquella, Malenia, or the Glomide Queen, were ever given shadows. Long before the events of the game, Ranni was chosen by her Two Fingers to become an Empyrean. To keep her safe, she was given a shadow, Blaidd. While we aren't told too much about their early time together, we can infer that Blaidd was welcomed in as an honorary member of the Carian royal family, being raised alongside Ranni and her brothers, Radahn and Rykard. Iji, an advisor and loyal ally to Ranni, refers to Blaidd as Lady Ranni's stepbrother.
Blaidd is Lady Ranni's stepbrother. Ranni's mother, Queen Rennala, approved of him, and they played like siblings from childhood.
And although it is cut content, Rennala's apparent approval of Blaidd would have been even more clear, as she would have summoned him to assist during the second phase of her fight, complete with an unused line of dialogue.
Come, Blaidd, my child.
However, this piece, unfortunately, wasn't to last. Despite being named as a potential successor to Queen Marika, Ranni resented her Two Fingers. When somebody becomes an Empyrean, their fate is set in stone, forcing them to essentially become a servant to the Greater Will. In defiance of her fate, Ranni organized a plan to free herself of her Empyrean flesh. This plan culminated in what is known as the Night of Black Knives. I won't go into too much detail about it, as it's not entirely relevant to our current discussion, but this is a brief summary of events. Ranni stole a fragment of the Rune of Death from Malekith, imbuing it into the blades of a group of Numen assassins who are close to Queen Marika. From there, she slew her Empyrean flesh while the assassins simultaneously slew Godwyn the Golden, Marika's eldest son, destroying him in spirit. Ranni's soul was then transferred into a doll that was modeled after her mentor, before going into hiding with Blaidd and Iji. The Night of Black Knives was the catalyst for the Shattering, a massive war that broke out between the demigods after Marika shattered the Elden Ring in her grief over the death of Godwyn. It's unknown how long before the game that these events occurred, but given the state of the lands between, it seems safe to assume that it's been a few centuries at least. In those hundreds of years, Blaidd remained steadfastly loyal to Ranni, devoting himself to her and her mission. At first glance, this may not seem very noteworthy. After all, it should be expected of a shadow to remain loyal to its master. However, Blaidd's loyalty is far from ordinary. A few paragraphs ago, I mentioned how Blaidd was created by the Two Fingers to protect Ranni. What I neglected to mention, however, was the failsafe.
The Two Fingers gave Blaidd to Lady Ranni as a faithful follower. Her very shadow, incapable of treachery. But if Lady Ranni, as an Empyrean, resists being an instrument of the Two Fingers, the shadow will go mad, transforming from a follower into a horrid curse.
By Ranni acting in defiance of the fate that had been laid out for her by the Two Fingers, she defied their will completely. This means that Blaidd should have turned on Ranni the moment she even thought about defying the greater will. But then that raises the question, how has he managed to remain loyal? There's a quote that I believe perfectly embodies Blaidd as a character, though it comes from a completely different series, Destiny. And there goes half the viewers. There's a phrase that's often repeated throughout the series about what it means to be a guardian. Devotion inspires bravery. Bravery inspires sacrifice. Sacrifice leads to death. Blaidd, without a doubt, embodies all three of these virtues. First, let's discuss devotion. In my opinion, this is the virtue that Blaidd embodies the strongest. The description of the Royal Greatsword, Blaidd's weapon of choice, says the following, quote, "In defiance of the fate he was born to, Blaidd swore to serve no master but Ranni. As proof, the sword was imbued with a cold magic at the moment oath was sworn." End quote. I ended the previous segment asking how Blaidd managed to remain loyal to Ranni, and this is your answer. Despite the failsafe put in place by the Two Fingers, Blaidd did not bend to the whim of his creators because of his unyielding devotion to helping Ranni achieve her goal. In fact, I would argue there's a far better term to use to describe Blaidd's loyalty. Love. While Blaidd was created as Ranni's shadow, it's crucial to remember that he wasn't raised as such. He was raised as Ranni's stepbrother. To him, Ranni wasn't just his mistress or the Empyrean he was bound to protect. She was his family. The only family that he had left after the Shattering. This bond is one of the elements that makes Blaidd's story so tragic. When Ranni defied the greater will and set her plan into motion, Blaidd was faced with an impossible choice. He could either remain loyal to Ranni, unaware of the repercussions this would bring, or he could give in to the instincts forced upon him by the Two Fingers and betray his sister. And Blaidd made his choice. He chose Ranni. Not out of obligation, but out of the love and devotion he felt for her as both her shadow and her brother. His love was so strong that he defied fate itself to stay with her. He chose to stand by her side, not knowing that every step he took was another step closer to his own destruction. This intense devotion, in turn, fueled Blaidd's courage. While it's his loyalty that anchors him, it's his bravery that drives him to act on that loyalty. In my eyes, Blaidd isn't just a warrior, he's a protector. He's willing to place himself in harm's way if it means that Ranni will be closer to her goal. For instance, Blaidd's role in helping you slay Starscourge Radahn. In order to access the eternal city of Nokron and retrieve the Fingerslayer blade for Ranni, you'll need to travel to Florida and participate in a festival being held at Redmane Castle, where everyone participating will have the chance to do battle with the infamous General Radahn. There's just one slight problem. Let me check my notes here real fast. Oh yeah, Radahn is said to be the most powerful of the demigods, so much so that even after he's lost his mind to Scarlet Rot, he's still able to passively use his power to halt the movement of the stars. To challenge a revered and powerful general like Radahn is nothing short of a death sentence for most warriors. And yet, upon learning this, Blaidd doesn't back down. He stands with you on the battlefield as a summonable ally. He doesn't fight for glory or recognition like many of the other warriors do. He fights because he believes in Ranni's vision and in you, the Tarnished who can help her achieve that goal. But Blaidd's bravery isn't just limited to battles. His true courage comes from the acceptance of his purpose. The moment Ranni defied the Two Fingers and Blaidd swore allegiance to her, they made powerful enemies. The Two Fingers sent numerous assassins after Ranni in the centuries that followed, with Blaidd protecting her from every single one. By staying at Ranni's side, he put himself in danger. It would have been far safer for him to have left her side. And yet, Blaidd stayed. This is where Blaidd embodies the virtue of sacrifice. His bravery compels him not to sacrifice just his safety and his life, but his very purpose. He embraces his role as Ranni's shadow without hesitation, ready to ensure that no harm ever comes to her. To me, his story is symbolic of many of our own struggles. Sometimes true bravery requires more than we think we can give, and it requires us to confront the cost of our choices and keep moving forward. These details alone make Blaidd a compelling and complex character. His story is defined by his devotion to Ranni, the bravery he displays, and the sacrifices he's willing to make. His only motivation is to ensure his sister achieves her goal, and he expects nothing in return. Blaidd's story is a tale of unwavering loyalty and heroism in a land consumed by betrayal and despair. And if it were up to me, it would end right here. But this isn't how Blaidd's story ends. To end it here would be to deny the truth that defines him, the heartbreaking conclusion that elevates him from just another NPC to one of Elden Ring's most unforgettable characters. To truly understand Blaidd, we must confront the full weight of his sacrifice and the tragic ending that befalls him, a conclusion as heartbreaking as it is inevitable. After retrieving the Fingerslayer blade from Nokron and presenting it to Ranni, she's surprised. Not by the blade itself, but by the one who delivered it. It wasn't Blaidd, her loyal shadow and constant companion, but you, the Tarnished who only recently pledged their service to her. Even more unsettling is Blaidd's absence during your time in Nokron, despite his promise to meet you there and aid you in the search. So, where is he? If curiosity leads you to the Forlorn Hound's Everjail, you'll find Blaidd imprisoned within. Trapped, but not by an enemy. Blaidd explains that it was Iji who betrayed him, claiming that he would bring, quote, naught but bale to Lady Ranni, end quote. You're faced with the choice to free Blaidd from his prison, but ultimately, the decision is inconsequential. Should you choose to release him, you can return to Iji for answers. It's then that the grim truth about shadows comes to light. Shadows, bound by design to their Empyreans, carry a hidden curse. Should their master defy the greater will, their loyalty becomes a weapon of destruction. No matter Blaidd's devotion or feelings, he is powerless to escape the fate that was written for him at the moment of his creation. From here, you continue with Ranni's quest. You defeat Estelle, Natural Born of the Void, you retrieve the Dark Moon Ring, and you become Ranni's faithful consort. From here, there's no reason to ever return to Ranni's Fries. After all, your business is finished there, so why go back? Well, if you do, I'll just let the scene play out.
No. I'm part of her very being. I can never betray her, no matter what might happen. Ranni, she needs me.
Unable to fight against his instincts any longer, Blaidd succumbs to his fate. He becomes the monster the Two Fingers had intended him to become from the moment Ranni rejected her fate. He now poses a threat to Ranni and anyone else who may be unfortunate to cross his path. And right now, that's you. Upon seeing you, his friend and ally, he finally gives into his fate. And in that moment, you don't have any other choice. You slay Blaidd. If anything, it's an act of mercy. You put an end to his suffering before it could truly take hold, but at the cost of a bond, a friendship, and a deep devotion. In all honesty, I believe that Blaidd attacking you was his way of sparing you from the inevitable. He knew your strength. After all, you've already slain one of the most powerful demigods with relative ease. If you possess the power to do that, then you have the strength to put him down. I don't think Blaidd lost his fight against his instincts. I think, in his final moments of clarity, he chose to let you win. Because he knew that if anyone could end his suffering, it was you. And I'm not ashamed to admit that the first time I played Elden Ring and reached this moment, I cried. It broke me. I hadn't expected that a fictional wolf bound to his inevitable fate would bring me to tears, but that's just the kind of character that Blaidd is. His story is one of devotion, and his death is a painful reminder of the cost of that kind of devotion in a world where fate is never kind. In the nearly 3 years it's been since I first witnessed this scene, I've thought about it many times. The weight of Blaidd's death has lingered with me for far longer than I expected, and over time, I've come to see it in a new light, one that feels almost painfully real. At this point, I believe that Blaidd's death can be viewed as an analogy for the sudden and unexpected loss of a loved one. When someone we care about passes away unexpectedly, it's rarely something they planned or wished for. Often, they're taken from us by circumstances beyond their control, an accident, an illness, or something else completely. And while they may try to fight with everything they have to stay with us, sometimes, no matter how hard they try, it just isn't enough. I'm sure that many of us have been in this spot before. For some, it was a close friend that you spent your entire childhood with. For others, it may have been a partner that you wanted to spend the rest of your life with. And for some of us, it was your dad, who unexpectedly passed. And when you finally come to realize just how much he sacrificed for you to be where you are, and before you can really thank him for everything that he's done for you, he's gone. In all of these instances, the loss feels all-encompassing. It's something that changes the course of your life. You're just left with this gaping hole as you try to reconcile with how someone who was so present in your life could just suddenly be gone. For me, this is what Blaidd has ultimately come to symbolize. He wanted nothing more than to protect and stand by the person who mattered to him most, but there was nothing he could do to prevent the inevitable. We might find ourselves in a position where we suddenly have to make these difficult decisions. Perhaps even the difficult decision to let go. In Blaidd's case, this loss isn't just about the physical loss of someone we care about. It's about watching them struggle with an unrelenting fate, that feeling of knowing that no matter how hard they fight, they might not be able to escape it. And just like the sudden passing of a loved one, it leaves us with these lingering questions. Was there something we could have done differently? Could we have saved them? Blaidd's death is more than just a tragedy. It's a bitter reminder of how cruel and unjust the world can be to even the most steadfast and noble of souls. His love and devotion were repaid by a fate he didn't deserve. He wasn't just a tool of the Two Fingers or even just Ranni's shadow. He was a companion, a protector, and a friend. Blaidd truly deserved better. He deserved to see the dawn of the Age of Stars that he'd fought so hard to help bring about. He deserved to remain by Ranni's side, to stand with us in battle as we fight Claw and Fang. But instead, we're left with the hollow ache of what could have been. In the end, Blaidd's story is one of devotion, bravery, and sacrifice. A tale that resonates far beyond the boundaries of Elden Ring's fictional world. His love for Ranni, his courage in the face of danger, and the heartbreaking conclusion to his story all paint a picture of a character whose tragedy feels all too real. He represents the painful reality of fighting against forces beyond our control, and the beauty of giving everything for someone you love. But even in the shadow of his fate, there's a light. Blaidd may be gone, but his legacy endures. His story, like so many others in our lives, reminds us of the power of connection. While the loss of a loved one may leave an ache in our hearts, it also leaves behind something else. A sense of love and gratitude for having known them at all. And though we may not have been able to change their fate, we can carry on in their name by fighting for the things they stood for. To me, Blaidd has become far more than just another character in a game. He's a reflection of love, loyalty, and loss in our own lives. His story reminds us to find the strength to keep moving forward, even when the road ahead feels impossible. And in that strength, there's hope. Hope that the connections we build will never truly break. And that, like Blaidd, the ones we've loved and lost will always be with us.